Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Fortey, and this is the podcast. We're called Off Topic on Purpose. And I'm sitting down today with my friend Chad McMillan, and I'm stoked to have you here.
Thank you.
And
Nice to be here.
yeah, good. We will see what happens. The way that I like to roll is just conversational, and I know you're the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a couple of ideas and a couple of things on my mind, but what this isn't is I don't want it to be a business podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to be, giving people advice. This is just more conversational, and you're a cool person. What cool stuff are you up to?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it.
Cool. Yeah, we crossed paths not in a business environment. It was in a conscious community event type of a space.
Yeah.
And that was our first kind of foot into connecting. And then our conversations just organically have flowed and talked about everything from business to life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm similar. I'm
Yeah.
organic that way. I flow
Yeah.
with what comes up. So yeah, wherever we
Yeah.
feel like going today, it's cool to be here. We haven't sat down and chatted in a few days, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a
Um,
while. Yeah.
so we're due.
Yeah.
You know, we're due. So let's see where it flows. Hopefully, we
Yeah.
share some interesting things and add some value for people out there about the
Yeah.
way we kind of live and see the world and
Yeah.
do cool stuff. You know.
Definitely. Before we started the recording today, we were talking a little bit about flow, and that was actually one of the few things I did jot down is like, what does living in flow look like to you? What does it mean to you? How important is it to you?
Mm. Well, like my background, my story is that I've been very business minded
Hmm.
most of my life and around high functioning business people. Both my parents are high functioning business operators in different ways, and so that was definitely like ingrained in my journey. A real awareness of that world, and with it, I feel it comes with a lot of like mentally driven
Mm.
structures. So we put a lot of pressure on solving problems with our brain, and I think
Hmm.
that's like a real social pattern. I think that's like something that we all generally look to figure things out. And what I found on my journey, and like my world is early stage finance and venture capital and capital markets and all this. And what I found for me is I got to the point where trying to figure out um, challenges just using my brain, right,
Hmm.
uh, was tiring. Like that's where the rat race is really being run, is in here,
Hmm.
and trying to kind of keep up with things or figure all the puzzles out in your head, and it can really tire you out,
Hmm.
and it did for me. So in embracing broader perspectives of life and how to live life, I started to explore just really other sides, and also those started to find me,
Mm.
and I explored deeper and started to explore deeper, more of a feel based um, modality of life, which was kind of foreign to the way I'd been living and kind of the most dominant approaches to life that I was used to, and that required a pretty significant surrender of
Mm.
just, I'm going to try something completely different on how to approach the world, right? And what is that like if I did that? And I mean, our minds are always active. We're present. We're familiar with the term like mindfulness and
Hmm.
mindful living. Many know what meditation is.
Hmm.
Not everybody maybe has tried it. Um, but this is a whole basket of approaches to like quieten the mind and
Mhm.
and calm the mind and things like this. And so when you're in your head a lot, you're not in your body. And flow state, um, for me, is in the body,
Mm.
and it's a deeper connection to the present moment, a deeper connection to my intuition, how I feel, and letting that have a voice in the decision making process of what I do next or um, how I solve problems or similar.
Yeah, so can I ask, because that sounds incredible, and can't we all live that way? That would
Mm,
be amazing. I would love
mm,
that. But I feel like I'll speak to for men right now. I feel like from my experience, I witness a lot of men not allowing themselves to operate from this way.
mm,
I'm sure you see that as well. But did something happen to you, or how did you allow yourself, or how did you try to go down that way instead of getting out of the logical rat race in the brain, instead of being in the flow now in the physical body space?
such a good question. It's a whole world you open up, right? Because this does come up
Yeah.
for men,
Yeah.
and of course I am one, and so being a guy who lives with this awareness and still operating and functioning in this environment that is heavily like cerebrally driven.
Mhm.
Um, I do get this question a fair bit. Like, what are we pursuing? Is a way to look at this. Um, there's the vision of the world on paper and like what your life should look like on paper,
Mhm.
and it creates these social pressures. I feel of like, do you have the nice home, the nice car,
Mhm.
the 2.2 kids and the white picket fence, and are you aligned with this like predetermined journey of what your life on paper is
Mm.
expected to look like. And mine is different for sure than that. Uh, in the interesting ways, my journey has flowed. But in the pursuit of that, the keeping up with the Joneses, I think
Mm.
that creates pressures for people, and for men for sure is a in a traditional provider role or similar, it comes up, and
Mhm.
that creates stress. Um, Other things meet you there that either make that attainable or less attainable in your life. And those are things that you can or can't predict, but
Mhm.
are still they're still valid as a part of your life experience. And so, where do we hold space for those things along our path um, that aren't just like this kind of robotic progression of things?
Mhm.
And it's only in the last I'll feel like maybe 10 years or so, that maybe a bit more now, but that with social media and this like democratization, I guess, of content
Mm.
um, and ideas, that a lot of other perspectives have emerged where people can access some of this information that inspires kind of different ways of living um, than what was maybe being suggested or fed through more like
Mhm.
centralized channels, right? That I would argue like serve as a functional form of like conditioning and expectation. And as an entrepreneur yourself,
Mhm.
um, like I am, and many others, business isn't easy, and it's tricky and challenging finding your way. And so is career building, right?
Mhm.
And and sometimes things aren't working, and you're doing all the things that are on paper
Mhm.
right with your business or with your career, but something's still not clicking.
Mhm.
You're still not where you want to be. Um, or you are there and you're still recognizing that that's not everything and part of that's empty. I
Mhm.
remember, running around Manhattan and raising money for a venture I was running, and like everything was ticking the boxes.
Mhm.
I was doing all the things. I was living the higher flying life and all this. And I remember just like standing there on like Broadway or something. I think it was like near Times Square, and I'm like, I'm here, but something's still not here,
Mm.
right? And like, what is that thing? Why do I still feel like there's a bit of a void? And yeah, and there's some pain I feel associated with that because of
Mhm.
what you're contributing energetically to push to get to that place that you feel when you get there will be satisfying,
Mhm.
right? Will complete you or have, that full basket of like achievement. I will enjoy once I arrive, or,
Mhm.
I am in joy uh, once I achieve. And yeah, and there was stuff there. There's stuff I needed to work with and explore. And I was like, is this it?
Mm.
Because I was also functionally exhausted, like to try and push to that place. At least the way I was doing it, I was, I was quite tired, right? And so uh, it opened me up to other things, and that kind of started a path. And I think there's a lot of men that carry a lot of weight.
Mm.
There's a lot of expectations. I mean, I've had recent conversations where, people say like, and this is what a man does, and this is who a man is and stuff. It's like, I'm a man. Like, fuck, I'm like right here, like fully, born and encompassed as a man. Like, am I axe throwing in my backyard between, like 3 and 5 in the afternoon? No. Am I like yelling at the sky and beating my chest and
Oh.
whatever? Like, look, those are healthy exercises, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
also like not required.
Yeah.
So for, I think, a lot of men, and each man can speak for himself and his journey, but like men carry that load
Mhm.
personally. And it's, am I embodying,
Mm.
my full self or not? Am I enjoying my journey or not? Or am I just carrying like a fucking load of expectation of what my life should be like and who I'm supposed to be versus where I actually am, who I actually
Mhm.
am, what I enjoy doing, and where does that take me? So for me, it was more about like fully accepting myself,
Mm.
uh, and all the skills that got me to that place, but also recognizing there's like a whole nother world of, you know, interpretation and philosophy and inspiration, um, to consider that could possibly help me make my journey feel more enjoyable, less stressful,
Mm.
uh, healthier, better energized, more sustainable, more enriching, you know,
Mhm.
more impactful in a positive way on the world, things like this. And so then you become curious, right? And you open up
Mm.
and explore it. And then I'll say that like that's a whole story in and of itself, my exploration of that. But I've done a ton of work in this area, and um, you know, since and during, and I've got a great social network of people that have a lot of different takes and perspectives on the
Mhm.
world, and they're all welcome because I don't pass judgment. I'm not here to judge. I just live my life kind of the way it feels right for me. But I have a great like core
Mm.
of like my homies. You know what I mean? Like my conscious bros who are also like doing their work to become the best version of themselves, um, are kind to themselves in it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like accept the path, have a couple scars or wounds from past experience, but like reconcile with like the more like destructive or toxic aspects of a man's journey, right? In like destructivism or like unbridled anger
Mm-hmm.
or things like this, you know, and like done the work, right? And embrace those ways to do that, um, and release those types of patterns in healthy ways. Um, and then many other men
Yeah.
who like do reach out because they're curious, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
just do my thing. I really
Yeah.
don't, you know.
But how do you get the okay, so quick question. How do you get the courage? Because I can imagine like you're running around Manhattan with all these finance bros and you're kind of sucked into that world. And it's like, how do you find the space, the time, the courage to like stop and look within? Because I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people, maybe guys especially, I'm not sure, but a lot of people get stuck in that, whether they are distracted by having kids or having a career or they're just keeping up with the paycheck, right? How do you, or what did you do to find that space and the courage? Because it takes courage. We've talked about this in past
Mm-hmm.
conversations, the courage to talk about your spirituality in a world of venture capital and private markets.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't think you're a Yahoo and you're still, smart and brilliant and doing all the things you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but being in alignment and true to you.
Yeah, like some people still think I'm a Yahoo. Like you're not gonna get away from
I
that.
mean, yeah.
But that's also a form of resistance. Like
Yeah.
if you know me, I'm like pretty kind of clear headed.
Yeah.
um, and the stuff I do, I do know pretty well. But I'm sober for over 10 years,
Mm.
and the culture isn't just unique to the markets, and finance. I mean, in many business cultures, and even just broadly,
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge connection of us connecting to each other, um, socially through some form of libation, right? Of some form of,
Yeah.
you know, salve that loosens us up and makes us more comfortable to
Mm.
spend time together. And I was all about it. I used to smoke a pack a day.
Mm.
I used to sit in the old Irish pubs and drink a case of beer in a night and just like talk shop,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then varying degrees of that. I never got heavy into the kind of the drug scene and that, but that's a slippery slope,
Mm-hmm.
for people also. And that contributes to the feeling.
Mm.
And that feeling is fatigue, burnout, exhaustion, things like this. So like my hangovers were at a point because it's steady, it's regular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my pattern was honestly like, okay, it's this day. I'm feeling good. I'm going to be social, shake hands, kiss babies, like do the
Mm-hmm.
business, move the ball down the field, and would have a great time and a great night and right,
Mm.
connect with lots of people. But the next day I'd have a brutal hangover.
Mm.
So the next day was a bit of a wash, right? I'd rest the next day, but then the day after I'd feel good again.
Right.
So we start the cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like, 50% of my time was that. And it gets to a point where, um, for me, it got to a point where, you're still getting a bit older. Your hangovers are getting worse.
Mm.
You're working on various forms of business that come with their own stress, right? So, a shareholder call or a finance call or just a business call with a stakeholder, um, on a hangover day was like, ugh, right? It's just, you don't have the juice for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a form of pain. And so you get to a place for me, I got to the place where I was like, my body's telling me I can't do it all, that I can't keep up this pace. This isn't sustainable.
Mhm.
Um, I feel the trigger for people is different, but yeah, when it started to come up for me and I started to shift, I took like a ton of flack, like
Mm.
communally in the community, at least for the people I was connected to. Um, it was a bunch of different things that came up for me, like creative energy emerged. Those energies were leaving. My awareness and kind of my inner compass was strengthening as I was navigating through these various things. And
Mm.
look, it's your journey.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it's not everybody's journey is the same. And that's why I mean this like vision of this is what your life is supposed to look like on paper isn't um it isn't accurate, right? Your life can look like a lot of things on paper.
Mhm.
No two are going to look exactly the same. And so embracing some of that helps you, I think, find your way home. Um, but as I was sharing this, I took like just a shit ton of flack and like trade papers writing me up and comments in discussion forums. And it
Hmm.
was like it's pretty like
Interesting.
solo place you found yourself, like
Yeah.
pretty isolated that way because the social norm of the community was what it was.
Mm.
But what
Mhm.
was I was feeling was that my path needed to change, um, because that wasn't going to be sustainable. And not everybody's been able to change. I just lost
Mhm.
a colleague earlier this year who,
Mm.
was really wrestling and struggling and tried to help. And it's a super shitty thing, you
Mhm.
know? But each of us have to step into that space for ourselves and go, like, what I'm doing is serving me or is not, or I'm true to myself or it isn't. And no one else can do the work but you. So you have to step up with that courage to say, look, I'm either going this way
Yeah.
or that way. A colleague said to me, and it's like one of my favorites, is he says, we're either, and he meant it in a business context,
Mm.
like a company, but it also applies to the individual. We're either expanding or we're contracting.
Mhm.
And so at this moment in time, am I expanding, into my highest and greatest good, into my
Mhm.
biggest potential, into my best version of myself? Or am I contracting into like, let's just say like the opposites of that, right? The smallest version of myself, the most destructive version of myself, the saddest version of myself, or similar. And it's for us to evaluate and measure that, right? So,
Mm.
so from that, then we make the adjustment. We recalibrate. If we take ownership of our lives, and we also have to do that.
Mhm.
You're not going to get anywhere in business or life if um, walking on the path of your life, you carry a victim mindset. You are the creator. Your life is your responsibility. Your journey is yours to create. Take the first step. Like
Mhm.
stand up, take the first fucking step, and like then take the second step. Do you know what I mean? And so for that, it was like really tough. It was uncomfortable. It
Mhm.
was deep work. And I was just burnt of the way I was doing things. And I started to do that work, and I was like working on, not drinking and all this sort of stuff. And it got to me to a point where I was like, I need the space to do it. And I literally grabbed my suitcase, packed my suitcase day
Mhm.
one. The next day, I told my family, I said, I'm leaving. And I said, I don't know where I'm going.
Mm.
I don't know if or when I'm coming back. I have to fully just surrender to something different. Um, I was still like working remotely, or I was still gonna do whatever. It was well before,
Mhm.
that remote work era, that, pandemic and stuff we all went through. But it was like I need to shift all this, but I also need my space to
Mhm.
just be who I am
Mhm.
without whole bunch of criticism by anyone else telling me who they think I should be, or anyone else really influencing that. Like, I'm just going to go and connect with the universe and just challenge it. And it's
Mhm.
really what I did is I just went and like looked up at the sky and said, like, what you got?
Mm.
Right? Like, is this it? Because I feel like shit right now.
Mm.
I'm exhausted. And the things I'm working on are like working in some ways and not in others. But I would argue like collectively not working by the way of how I feel, because then what am I doing all this for? Right. So it was really like look up at the sky and go like, I think there's more to this than the way I'm doing it. And it was the start of like a huge pilgrimage for me that, I think
Mm.
we've chatted about a couple times that lasted for the better part of a year. And I just traveled solo by land, day
Mm.
to day through like towns and places and just like fully shed layers, explored myself, and the
Mm.
universe met me there as I went,
Mhm.
and it was like incredible. And every day you're just getting deeper into
Mhm.
your truth, but also deeper into your center and your confidence to hold your own center,
Mm.
set your own boundaries, hold your own center, be true to who you really are and how you feel, and just own that. And then once you're in that state, like you're connected directly to source, I'll
Mhm.
get a little woo for listeners there, right?
Mhm.
But like I could unpack that for hours. But like when you're then connected to source as your guide,
Mhm.
which is what? Which is like your intuition, it's what you see, what you hear, what you feel, right? Your gut instinct. When you're connected to all that and the messages you're receiving, just being present and putting one foot in front of the other, those become guideposts that take you to the next place. And now you're not really using your mind as much because you're just
Mm.
observing and trusting and following what feels right. And it's amazing how right that actually is. And that opens up, so much. But as you do it, you really like that becomes your guide. You really don't give a fuck about much else.
Mhm.
Um, Other than, of course, like care for people, you care for places and things, but like critics or haters or, whatever, it's like,
Mhm.
that's your work, man.
Yeah.
But I feel fucking
Yeah.
amazing right now.
Yeah.
I'm like dialed in. I am in flow.
Mhm.
And look at the series of things that are opening up for me that, yeah, don't really fit the
Mhm.
the um the white picket fence paradigm per
Mhm.
se and the way I'm living my life. But wow, I feel like fantastic. And also all these things are meeting me here and I feel I'm flowing. I'm moving with like infinite potential. And what an amazing like opening of, your mind, body, soul
Mhm.
to the world and universe to live that way. Like in awe of it all and like with the magic of
Mhm.
it all, right? And find like the deep appreciation and gratitude for just all of this experience, right? So
It's interesting because I kept reminding myself as you're telling this story, I feel like that's kind of the way that people are operating these days, like doing remote work and wanting to be in flow and tap into themselves, but this was a decade ago.
mhm,
So this is like you're definitely one of the early adopters or these people who paved the way, which as entrepreneurs, this is what we do. And it's
mhm,
very lonely and it's
mhm,
scary. And,
mhm,
I worked remotely in 2007, like a
mhm,
long time ago. Everybody thought I
mhm.
was like a drug dealer because I sold stuff online. And I'm like,
Right.
no, I'm telling you, I'm selling
Right,
real things online, not
right.
nefarious things. But the point is it's like, it is super lonely and you must have a strong internal guide. Maybe that's an entrepreneurial brain. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired
Mhm.
that I'm going to die or listen to myself.
Fully. Yeah, fully. That was like, I cannot sustain this pace,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna have a jammer here if I try and keep this up.
Mhm.
And you feel it. Like I did not feel healthy. I changed my diet. I changed
Mhm.
my, consumption habits, right? So I've been straight edge.
Mhm.
over these 10 years. And it's been, it's been amazing. But I'm also not like barefoot hanging out of a tree either. Like
Yeah.
I've got this, and with all due respect to anybody who is
Yeah.
at the moment, wherever you find your joy, but I have this um, deep experience in finance, capital markets,
Mm-hmm.
early stage public venture capital, and more, and so my skills and abilities still in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the other side of the pendulum and explored that, where it was literally just my suitcase that was with me.
Mm.
And in the suitcase, I had a tent and my tools and whatever. And on that journey, tried the other side of
Mm-hmm.
living. Like, how frugal could I live, and
Mm-hmm.
how basic and how simple, And then coming like full circle of that uh, has been finding the balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, how to live in flow in business, and
Mm-hmm.
how to bring some of these philosophical principles into the more professional work I do, that is still aligned with a bit of structure, right? That is still aligned with like a clear intention, a mission, you know, a specific problem to focus on solving exceptionally well, like these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So where do I find the marriage of these two worlds?
Mm-hmm.
Because at their extremes, they're polar opposite, right? The individual, barefoot hanging out of a tree. I know it's a bit crass to say it that way, but you know what I mean. Like the pure hippie, right?
Yeah.
Is like, fuck capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
and like resent possessions and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. The most high functioning investment banker, at least on paper,
Mm-hmm.
um, there are more kind of spiritual, luminary, enlightened professionals
Mm-hmm.
now, as well. It's not to overgeneralize, but let's just say that the archetype of that extreme is polar opposite to that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that individual in the tree, or sitting under the tree, so to speak. Um, and we'll say like, oh, well, that bleeding heart hippie or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's different. Those are
Mm-hmm.
polar views.
Yeah.
So where's the compromise? Because
Yeah.
we're all here. But I will suggest to you that more often than not, the investment banker, or similar, on the capital side, is lacking
Mm-hmm.
some substance on the more spiritual or feel based levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very stressful world, stressful environment, markets swinging every day,
Mm-hmm.
tickers rolling across your desk every day, financial pressures, right? On the other side, um, this individual who like isn't really attuned to that side does have financial pressures for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe so the investment banker may be doing well financially, but not feeling good about what
Mm-hmm.
it takes to actually be there. On the other side, you've got a person who's not doing good necessarily financially, but feels great because they're just shunning the system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, neither of those extremes are sustainable, in my opinion. So how do we embrace deeper awareness and consider these principles and integrate them into our lives, but also still participate
Mm-hmm.
in progress and the advancement of, humanity, civilization, like the best versions of ourselves, and all of this integrated. And been a big part of my
Mm-hmm.
work and exploration. And I feel I've got it pretty balanced, I think it can swing
Mm-hmm.
from center a little bit, but I check in, you know. I can feel it. I'm like, oh, I'm pushing a bit too hard. I'm
Mm-hmm.
headed a bit more that way. Or, oh, you know, I've been lying on this blanket for a while. Like, I should probably get up and like,
Yeah.
start like, rolling up the sleeves and like putting a little
Yeah.
more focus in things. So you can sway a little bit, but I feel I've found a balance between the two. But I do feel part of my journey was exploring the extremes of them
Mm.
to understand each and then find that like middle ground harmony for myself, you know?
Yeah, and I really can relate to that. And I feel like a lot of people, maybe it's a bit of a post-pandemic hangover or just everything going on in the world, but I feel so many people are so burnt out.
Mm,
And what you're talking about, the investment banker, what I've been realizing, because I'm coming off of major burnout, like I feel like last year was a year of healing for me, and this year is a year of reintegrating everything. But um, what I've noticed is that, like the investment banker, it's like you've totally lost sense of your soul, of your
mm,
creativity, what makes you feel good. The whole reason for this podcast, I'm not monetizing it. If that
mhm,
happens, awesome. But it's a
mhm,
creative outlet for me to make me
mhm,
feel like me. I used to be a journalist. I used to interview people for a living.
mm,
This is getting back to my soul.
mhm,
And it lights me up so that when I go to work in my company, I have energy,
mhm,
right? Because if I'm like only in the company, it's like you said before, like you're stuck in the rat race loop of your mind of like trying to figure it out. But going to the gym, doing the podcast, doing the things that I love and enjoy, and spending time away, taking vacation, which
mhm,
so many startup founders don't do. They don't allow
mhm,
themselves.
mhm,
This is why I moved out of Toronto. You lived in Manhattan, same thing. It's like one upping each other. I worked 110 hours this week. I'm like, great, I worked 30 and made more than you,
mhm,
or whatever, right? It's
mhm,
about this is what I need to do for me.
mhm,
And then on the other side, right, the spiritual hippie side, they are having a human experience.
mhm,
So they can't just be a bright, shining soul. They still need to do those other things to have a grounding on the earth and doing those certain things.
mhm,
So the visual that I have in my mind that I try to achieve is like my feet on the ground, but my head in the clouds,
mm,
like at the same time,
mhm,
right? Because
mhm,
I mean, I like capitalism, I like business, I like growing things,
mhm,
and that can't be the only thing I do.
mhm,
And I think that's why we related when we first met at a conscious event about a year ago, because you are like a spiritual VC.
mhm,
And especially in that realm, most people aren't that way. They want numbers. Um, but from what I felt with you is that you work with people that are cool and you
mhm,
want to help out and you want to do these certain things.
mhm,
And those things come. Money comes when we do those things and we give and then we can get back.
mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
So much there to tap into. I'm reminded of a question I was asked by one of the old boys like years ago, and we're having a drink, and he says, "How many scars do you have?" You know, and I said, "What do you mean? Like, you
hmm
know, like physical? Like, you know, how many scars do you have? Like, how much shit have you been through? Like, actually, you know, are you squeaky clean behind the ears, or have you actually like
hmm
been in been in the arena? If you know
hmm
the old um, man in the arena
hmm
um, speech. I believe it was a speech. It's so good. And it's the type of people I like to work with, like the people with enough like humility to have like lived life and just humbled enough by it to just go, yeah, I'm just here and I'm like as good as I can be and I'm not perfect, but I'm growing
hmm
and I'm committed to growth and like yeah, this mission inspires me or whatever and I have abilities, skills and abilities I can like lend to that.
hmm
Like real people, right? Because I can
hmm
generally see the ones who aren't authentic coming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that can come with flags and a whole bunch of stuff that is just, you know, drama I'm not like seeking in my life,
hmm
so to speak.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's exceptions to the archetypes I'm referring to the investment banker versus the like, you know, the hippie under a tree. Those are just, you know, those are tropes really
hmm
generally, but they exist. They
hmm
come from a place where it's kind of culturally, you know, known that it's a bit the lifestyle and a bit the
Yeah.
mindset. There's exceptions,
Yep.
and I embrace all the exceptions to those rules. So I'm not trying to oversimplify, but like I recognize those differences in myself, right? And yeah, once you start finding like the thread, the commonality between the two and how you can weave them together, um, it's super powerful. I'll say this too, that like the creative side I find is the highest vibration. It's why I'm also in the entrepreneurial world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's puzzle driven, it's project driven, and it's art and science.
Mm-hmm.
The science is this is the sandbox we play in as entrepreneurs, dependent upon our jurisdiction, what rules we adhere to
Mm-hmm.
in the work we do. And from that, there's best practices of the things we do and how we do them. And if we want, if we want to be someone, that does great business, then we invite those
Mm-hmm.
as inspiration and prescribe, at least intentionally, to adopting those best practices in our own work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not everybody does. Lots of, people who shirk in the gray areas or the shadows or whatever. It's everyone else's prerogative, but
Mm-hmm.
the former is where I tend to operate and try to. And you've got the art of how you do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And the art's the creative side. And the best entrepreneurs are, you know, savvy scientists, but visionary creatives, in my opinion, because they can free associate uh, an idea, right? They can look at like that chair over there and this painting and come up with this, amazing painted chair concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
That fits a certain, niche or market. Like they can see the gaps. If you're purely analytical, you might not spot them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the
Yeah.
deeper question is, where does that inspo come from? So is it because this person is creative, or where's that person getting that from? Are they channeling something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they receiving that idea from somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
So it is one part like being in a boardroom, right, to execute, but it's also one part being under a tree
Mm-hmm.
to just listen and receive,
Mm-hmm.
to connect those dots
Yeah.
and bring that, that palette of shape and color to the business and forge new paths, right, with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they go hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're important. It's been an amazing part of my exploration of both of these sides and ways of living, right? I firmly believe personally that um, I'm receiving this
Mm-hmm.
inspo.
Yeah.
And so I hold space in meditation or, yeah, under a
Mm-hmm.
tree. And yeah, barefoot on the nice days for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and just allow that to receive
Mm-hmm.
and come in and just listen to what comes up and take notes accordingly, right? And yeah, it's both of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blessed to have the other side of my abilities to then be able to um, receive that and take that and then apply it into the sandbox and paradigm of,
Mm-hmm.
of capital and finance and how we actually, build business that speaks to the other side of things also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been quite a ride so far.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Things just drop in, and I don't know. It often happens for me in dreams. I
Mm,
dream like in full technicolor, and things will come in. And if I'm dreaming about someone, I always tell them. And it's
mm,
often weirdly prophetic for them.
mhm,
And yeah, I feel like things just come in in meetings as well. Things just drop in. I don't know where or why, but I need to tell the person that thing, whether
Right.
it's in that room or somewhere else,
Right.
or something else clicks. But you're right, because if I'm so blocked and closed and stressed and all these things, I can't hear those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I love what you're saying. And for me, my biggest piece of creativity is actually sports.
Mm.
I love sports, very sporty, embodied. When I'm in my body, I'm not thinking about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then whether stuff just drops in or after I'm doing something, then things come up, ideas come in. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been trying to solve that problem for 2 weeks and I just had to go play golf.
Right.
Great.
Right.
Right?
Well, two things to that. One, movement is a great bridge
Mm-hmm.
between the mind and the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Movement will bring you back into your body. So whatever way you need to find that for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right, and any listener, whatever that feel good is, to break it up and bring yourself back into your body is a good thing. Where then after, just some quiet space would be enough once you're back in your body to just chill and listen,
Mm-hmm.
just watch the birds and the waves and whatever, and just kind of listen to what comes up. And that's no matter what it is, not just business, but life too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're feeling something, if like, there's that thing you're unsure about, or you're going through something and emotions are coming up, like that's just such like a pure baseline, holistic way to just be kind to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and work through that, but also sure to apply into a business context, right? How am I going to navigate that, or how am I going to, work through this relationship issue, and just take space to, as I say, not react but respond, um, and not be overly impulsive, but be a bit more, intentional. Is super is super in a way that it helps, and that it serves us, without pushing too hard, without pushing, consistently or constantly all the time, and just draining us, just taking
Mm-hmm.
some of that space. Because the other thing is that, um, you may have found, I've found, others listening may have found that, you know, we're on a rock
Mm-hmm.
spinning through space around the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, even when we're not in a form of doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, things are still happening.
Yeah.
So when we do things that we enjoy, it brings us to a certain frequency. It
Mm-hmm.
brings our energy to a certain vibration that, I believe, and many do, attracts other similar things.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that, going and playing sports,
Mm-hmm.
and breaking away from whatever puzzle is bouncing around in your brain, and just loosening up from that, allows other things to happen. And when you do that, um, it often happens that while you're doing it, or just after you're doing it, or similar, the phone will ring, the email will come
Mm-hmm.
in, uh, the deal's been signed, like whatever. The chips move,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's counterintuitive, because all you've been doing is like pushing as hard as you possibly can to move this block, right?
Yeah.
To put this square peg in this round hole.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that moment and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to go play soccer today.
Yeah.
Right? Or
Yeah.
like, whatever, I'm just going to go
Yeah.
hike, right? I've pushed as hard as I can. I
Yeah.
need a breath. I'm going for a hike. Or for me, it's the beach. The beach is like
Mm.
my sanctuary. And then you do that,
Mm.
and then it happens. And it's
Yeah.
almost like a joke of the universe,
Yeah.
right? It's like the universe is watching. It's like, see, now you got it, right?
Yeah.
And now I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
And it happens. So, like, be kind to yourself that way. Do that thing.
Yeah.
Trust that the world is still moving in your
Mm.
favor. The universe is still conspiring in your favor, right? And these elements are still out there and still supporting you.
Mhm.
And you also, like, let's go for a sec. I mean, you also deserve that joy.
Mhm.
You are permitted to feel good.
Mhm.
You are not the worst times of your life. You are you in this moment. The past is gone. The future is all the promise you seek. And in this moment, you have a right to feel great.
Mm.
Do it. Gift yourself that and just see what starts to happen, right?
Mhm.
So much of this like hustle porn and like you got to work harder, and people put this content out there all the time like you got to grind, bro, and you got to really, it's like, yeah, like mm, you got to flow with intention,
Mhm.
right? I don't need to see the blood sweating off your brow or whatever. Like
Mhm.
it's it depends what world you're in, I guess, to some degree, but like, you know, even like, hey, even MMA fighters, these
Mhm.
guys are like just specimens of fitness and like
Mhm.
tactics and all this sort of stuff. But when you watch still some of like the best guys in that world, and I'm not like a huge MMA guy, but it's a good example, right?
Mhm.
That's even like such heavy contact. Some of the best fighters are like, they're still like poetry. They're
Mhm.
still so fluid, right? Their
Mhm.
moves are like, whoa, like you just slip that in and around and like
Mhm.
and lock the guy up or whatever. It's just there's
Mhm.
still poetry in that.
Mhm.
There's still flow in that, right? If you watch sports at all and that and other sports, you can see the movement, you can see the shifting of energies in the play. If you've ever watched Messi play soccer, like
Mhm.
never met him, but like that's my boy. That guy
Mhm.
is like poetry in motion, and
Mhm.
it's incredible, the flow
Yeah.
and the fluidity of it, right? And it just reveals in these like ways that in areas and places you wouldn't think it exists,
Mhm.
and that it's very like blocked out, rigid, that there's that other aspect to it to consider. And yeah, it's a thing. So like all that hustle porn stuff, you know, you don't have to work that hard.
Mhm.
You actually need to work consistently.
Mhm.
You don't need to be a martyr. You don't need to, you know, end your day saying, "Oh, I just worked 16 hours," and like tell somebody
Mhm.
like because you want everybody to know, what did you do for 16 hours? Like,
Yeah.
what did you achieve? Okay, like if that's your choice,
Mhm.
and for some people it is their
Yep.
choice. It is their what they require. Like, not to oversimplify, but just to say like, um, if you have clear mission, you have a clear problem, you have a clear solution, you're building the solution of that problem, you're getting from point A to B, you're doing that intentionally, you
Mhm.
start today, you do a bit of that every day, right? That journey of 1,000 miles, right, begins with a
Mhm.
single step. There's a day where you will look back and you're like, wow, I didn't exhaust myself doing
Mhm.
this, but I moved it forward
Yeah.
and I achieved it,
Yeah.
right? I didn't have to bury myself to do it. I didn't have to run myself absolutely ragged to the end, right? And that's part of the way I was operating in the past, kind of full circle on that. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's why I brought some other changes and, lots of cool things flowing these days, lots going on and, you know,
Yeah, I feel like
feeling
so
good.
many people too want that, like you said, a journey starts with a first step, right? But you're not going to get to 10,000 steps or 100,000 miles after day 2. And I feel like so many people, I don't know if it's, I don't know, because of social media or quick, everything's quick, right? So I feel like people, start today and want the result tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And this hustle bro culture really talks to those people that all
Mm-hmm.
you got to do is this, this, and this. And then you're going to get to this Lambo and all these things over here. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it, first of all, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's not. But from what I've been really sinking into and what you're saying too is like, getting into our own alignment, and it's really our job to operate at our highest frequency.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to feel good without
Mm-hmm.
bypassing. Obviously, got to do our work, got to do the things. But
Mm-hmm.
if we are keeping our head up, keeping our eyes open, listening to things that drop in, taking breaks when we need it. Obviously, there's times when you need to push, but within reason.
Mm-hmm.
And if our goal is to feel good and to be true to who we are, then things come into play. I used to live my whole life in trust, and then when I moved here and started my company, it's not just me anymore. Things were out of my control, and then I started to lose trust a lot because, relying on other people and business partners and employees and these kinds of things, and I've really been getting back to that, but it's been hard. It's been a journey for sure. But anyway, that's what I'm took a lot from what you said is like the quick fix will never happen, obviously, we know, but also it's my job to feel good, and everything comes from that.
And so should what you work on.
Yeah.
Right? They say we don't plant the seed the same day we eat the fruit. Right? And so, seed things today. Keep seeding things every day. Keep watering those plants, and those are going to grow over time. And, we're only here now. So today's the day to do it. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not going anywhere. But if you're clear on like, this is my goal, this is what I'm building, and this is where we're headed, then, keep doing that thing. And the thing with the business journey is, it's not linear either, right? We like to look at like growth SaaS companies and show these like really nice, like steady growth charts and stuff. But like the average entrepreneur tells you, well, we got there, but like it was like this to get there, right? And so when I work with companies and advise companies, I say, look, and this is life too, you know, accept the things I can't control and control the things I can. And the things I can control is like improving our fundamentals. Improving product, improving the team, improving, partners and stakeholders, expanding relationships, that sort of stuff. The thing I can't control is like adoption rates and, who's going to adopt when and exactly how much product you sell or whatever. And so what you need to trust is that as you improve your fundamentals, no matter whose business it is, you will continue to attract bigger, better, more aligned stakeholders to your work and your mission. And along the way, you'll have these like spikes where lightning strikes. And then you're like, whoa, you're in the wind tunnel and all this magic is happening. And that'll happen for a phase of time. And you'll like have leveled up your journey. And now you're kind of here, right? And now you're kind of cruising again. And you're at that phase of your mission. And you work on that. And then lightning will strike again. And you'll level up again. And that's really the way to look at it, right? And that just is about consistent, effort and discipline. But it does not require you like crawling across the floor or the proverbial like desert, lacking thirst, saying, look how hard I'm working. That doesn't guarantee that just being in that state is going to hydrate you, right? To use the metaphor, the analogy. There's no guarantee of that reward. So while you're building and while you're growing and while you're on the path of life, take ownership of your own life. I've taken ownership of my life in this respect, and like take care of yourself in it, because it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And the sooner you start doing that, right, the more you'll be able to sustain your pace on your path and also open up to all these other amazing things that are around you, right? It's really the way I roll,
Yeah, that really hit me actually, the taking the ownership, what you just said, because I feel like so many people blame the thing. Oh, the pandemic. Oh, this. Oh, there's no money going around right now. VCs aren't investing. Oh, the interest rates. Oh, this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, my parents, whatever, like all these things that it's not taking responsibility and ownership, that sure, all of those are true. And how you react and respond and how you choose to make that part of your story, or be like, my parents did that, and as a result, I'm going to do this thing over here because I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be the opposite, instead
Mm-hmm.
of like, woe is me, I'm just going to follow the footsteps, or whatever the scenario is, right? So I think that, yeah, you just nailed it, like taking ownership, and for men and for women and for everybody going through all the things right now, that is the ugliest, scariest, hardest thing, is to be like, yeah, I am challenging sometimes and things are hard, and I created this dynamic and I created
Mm-hmm.
this to happen. Because then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it's like, well, what does it say about me? Like, am I
Mm-hmm.
evil? Am I a bad person? Did I make wrong decisions? Right?
Totally. On any of these things, it could be like, oh, that guy's an idiot, or
Yeah.
like, oh, or this relationship isn't working
Hmm.
because like they're like that or
Yeah.
whatever. But what if you took a different lens,
Hmm.
right? What if what I'm saying is actually true?
Hmm.
What if we're part of a bigger thing? What if we have a relationship to source ourselves, right?
Hmm.
What if all of this is a reflection of my own creation
Hmm.
and manifestation, the good, bad, and other?
Hmm.
So if I take complete ownership of that, even just philosophically to consider
Hmm.
it, right? And I go sit down and just sit with that and go, okay, well, what is my, feeling? What is my interpretation? What is my like experience with this? What parts do I like? What parts don't I like? How would I like those to be different? You know, speak them into, existence
Hmm.
and say like, I don't like that. I like this. I'd like more of this. Like just say, what if I had that power and ability?
Hmm.
And it changes the way you approach those circumstances.
Hmm.
And it's like right across, the full spectrum of life. Um, and we get pulled into it, and we need to take a pause and, you know, pull back and consider that. But when we do, it's so powerful
Hmm.
and things change, you
Yeah.
know, and we have to at least, well, nobody else has to do anything. I need to.
Hmm.
It's me, it's my responsibility in my life to consider that, right? I can consider all the other, perspectives and interpretations and like polarized accusations and whatever,
Hmm.
right? Kind of the lowest vibrating.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing to blame someone else.
Yeah.
I feel it's the hardest thing to take ownership and go, how am I responsible for this entire experience?
Hmm.
And it just reveals things to you. And if you just keep that in and own that, it's amazing how you shift and approach things in different ways. And it's amazing how that impacts all those
Mm.
circumstances and scenarios.
Yeah.
Um, so like, yeah, I mean, we're delving lots into the work
Yeah.
and the journey of work and the bridges between like, you know, the personal life, I guess, and professional. Um, but what does it all kind of come back to? It comes back to like, what? What are we all striving towards? We're
Mm.
striving towards um, feeling good,
Hmm.
achieving certain things or experiencing certain things that we feel um, make us feel good,
Hmm.
and finding peace also in our
Yeah.
life experience. And that is the path of the work. And when
Hmm.
you start to see that approach have a positive impact on your life and your business and kind of all areas, then it inspires you to, you know, go deeper
Mm.
and do some more of that work, right? Sit with it some more and meditate a little more and just, get even clearer on what you want. Because as you do it, you're like, wow, that shifted.
Hmm.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Hmm.
What else could I shift?
Hmm.
And wait a second, it kind of grows. And we say
Mm.
like once you're on that path of growth, you're always on it. And it doesn't like there's not an ultimate destination. It's more like starting it is the state,
Mhm.
and you've arrived at that state.
Mm.
And then from there is just the joy of the path, the joy of the progress, um, of just having this shift occur, across your world and your life, and then contributing in kind, right, to the world. Like
Mhm.
we're all social creatures still, no man is an island, right? So
Mhm.
if I'm doing my work, then, my intention is for that to have a
Mhm.
positive resonance and impact on those around me also, right? Which is
Yeah.
part and parcel how I'm sitting in this chair chatting
Yeah.
with you today talking about this
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, it's special stuff. It's it's been a ride. And the ride continues.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about seeing things differently and how, this is just become in the fabric of who you are, right? It's not like I do spiritual practices. It just becomes you embrace and embody and it just flows into all the areas of your life.
All right.
So you've written a couple of books. Your
Yeah.
newest one is called The Zen Trading Method, I
Yeah,
believe,
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
Put out this summer. And so even just those words together, the Zen trading method
Mhm.
kind of counter in its own way.
Mhm.
And obviously there's spirituality in everything. And I believe money is just energy. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I'd love if you wanted to talk about a little bit about I think you have 3 books,
Two,
your
two,
two,
two books now.
right? And a
Yeah, more
third.
coming. Yeah, writing a
Yeah.
third, fourth behind that.
Yeah.
It's been interesting, like that whole journey of everything I've just described, like without going deep into that
Mm-hmm.
pilgrimage phase. But that is the subject of my third book, which is
Mm,
about that pilgrimage I went on, and
cool.
not just the front story, but the backstory
Yeah.
and the insights and lessons and all kinds of that inspired and supported my lifestyle transformation. But it's been interesting, like exploring those poles, how to communicate
Mm,
that. And you really just said it that, um, you know, I am in venture capital. I am, capital markets expert. I am I am an entrepreneur and all these things. Um, but what I do is infused with those things,
mm,
with the things of who I am. And so this second book really kind of hit that for me, right? Where it's been hard to figure out that thread and how to
mm,
communicate it. And trading, the markets and trading is something I've been around a lot, small caps a lot. So navigating penny stocks is my first book, and that is all about like small caps and all the fundamentals of building and financing and all these things that go on behind the scenes because I've run those companies in
mm,
senior executive roles, and it's wild. Like there's a lot that goes on that people don't realize. So that's helpful for that community of people interested in that. But the Zen trading method is about trading and technicals and more like price action. And trading in and of itself, because of the volatility, can be exceptionally stressful.
mhm,
It's a huge source of stress. When do I get in? When do I get out? Um, and obviously, you want to make money.
mhm,
So, how do you make money and avoid losing it? And so, over the years, there's been, a structure of approach and strategy and tools that I use that optimize my best chances of, you know, realizing my best returns and minimizing my losses.
mhm,
And, that's what everyone's seeking. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. But many people ask me all the time because I'm around a lot of companies and stuff like, should I buy today? Should I sell today? And I always say, well, one, I'm not your financial advisor, so I can't actually tell you that, no matter what I think. And two, though, everyone's strategy is different. So, like,
Mhm.
it depends on your goals.
Mhm.
But for me, that book is my system. Here's my strategy from a trading standpoint. Um, if I'm building a company, right, then the first book applies more to the fundamentals and best practices and stuff that are common in building, public companies, which is more of like a longer term accumulation and hold strategy. But the latter is more about like day trading, swing trading, shorter term price action trading. And the system I use so that I approach the markets with discipline, I see my clear signals,
Mm.
I am maximizing my upside, I'm minimizing my downside risk, and I'm managing my emotion
Yeah.
with respect to it so that I see the signal, I know what to do. There's not a question to ask. I'm not pulling my hair out. I'm not yelling at the screen,
Mm.
right? I'm not stressed. It's like, there it is.
Mhm.
That's the moment. I know what the moment is. My system executes. I execute with my system. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Next, right? And yeah, and that's that book. That book shares that approach and that strategy of mine, and it's so far been helping people, and
Mm.
the reviews have been great, and um, I really like the process. I've figured out my writing process a bit. There's been a lot in me that I've wanted to share for a long time that I haven't,
Mhm.
and so the third book's flowing. So hopefully dropping that this fall, and then that's one I've always wanted to write. Lots of people ask me about that phase of my journey also, and then beyond that, like more fused business books are kind of the next two after that
Mm.
about raising money for business and more. Turning business around is the fifth that's on deck because I do a lot of work with that and
Yeah.
like the alchemy of changing the trajectory of where a company's headed. And so I'm in this flow with that now where I'm just moving this stuff out and
Cool.
putting it so it's accessible to others that might be interested in, vibing on some of these philosophies and ideas, learning
Yeah.
from there,
Well,
So,
everyone struggles with raising money.
yeah,
So that would
constant.
be a big one for sure.
Yeah, and it's an art form.
Yeah.
There's the science
Yeah.
again, and there's the art.
Mhm.
And, raising money is really particular in that investors and financiers, their radar's up,
Mhm.
to begin with. And when you know what you're doing raising money, you're kind of hitting the right notes.
Mhm.
And it sounds like a great melody, and it's genuine that
Mhm.
way. And it is music to their ears, and they go, I'm hearing all the right things I need
Mm.
to hear. That instills me with the confidence to know that the people I'm investing in know what the heck they're doing,
Mhm.
and they have a mission that I feel is um, viable, is reasonable to achieve. And if that occurs, this would be my reward, and like these things line up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's an art form. You develop a feel for that,
Yeah.
raising money, and I've raised and helped raise millions of dollars for public and early stage ventures, and that's it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I've also gone through the phases where people have just thrown my deck back at my face and,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep. Oh yeah.
told me forget it and whatever. But that's how you learn, right? It's
Yeah.
like through the fire. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so those would be super fun to write also.
Cool.
And then see where it takes me from there. But it'll be cool to have a nice, portfolio of these
Oh yeah.
works and just be able to share and help people along their journeys as
Mhm.
as they go as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, Another quick question. What what are you up to right now? What are you up to this fall? What are you excited about?
Hmm.
Other than these new books that are being birthed from within and yeah, just I know you're a beach guy, summer's over.
Not over
Um
yet. It's not over yet. Tomorrow's gonna get really nice again. So
Summer's almost over,
I do
but
call it my summer office. And
yeah,
for those who know me, they know where to find me. They know where
yeah.
that's going to be. But for all these things that I'm working on and doing,
Mm,
like the beach is an example where I just really deeply ground and
mm,
release there. And it does bring me back into my body. And I do, hold great meditative space on my blanket.
mm,
And I do work from my blanket too. Like it's just, like I was saying, is take that space to listen and hear. And that's a time and phase where it's nice to do that. So, heading into the fall here, there's always stuff going on. Gold's been moving lately. It's
mm,
had strong moves. Silver, copper's interesting.
mm,
So I'm invested in a gold project in particular that I have a close eye on at this time. Other critical metals,
mm,
very interested in that space for strategic reasons. So opportunities in that world that I'm advancing. Um, I have another venture that it's still in stealth, so I don't really want to, I don't want to talk too much about it.
yeah.
But maybe I'll say it's like an emerging holistic trend
Mm,
and very much aligned with myself and my lifestyle. Um, very easy to philosophically, get behind. And my work is like multifold. So like I'll advise CEOs of companies on strategy. I can wear a lot of different hats. Um, I will pull pieces together and lead M&A
mm,
between different companies or pieces and structure uh, new acquisitions or partnerships or new ventures or similar
mm,
by bringing the pieces together. Um, and more. So I'll kind of leave it there. But this venture is one of those things where all the pieces appear to be there. I've done a bunch of
mhm,
due diligence on each, and so I take those pieces and I map out the structure on how to bring them all together in a way that I also know is financeable, and pull the team and put them in the right places, and then launch this new venture. So that's cooking right now. It's pretty. It's like at a high percolating level. It's pretty cool. So probably more to drop on that before too long.
mm.
Um, what else? I got more. I got more. Definitely get the book done.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but stuff like this. I mean, it's a flow.
Mhm,
Business wise too. It's where do you operate in business? Well, I operate um, often like in the emerging and cutting edge realm of public venture capital. So I like to be ahead of the curve, but like the first maybe 10% of movers.
mm,
So when new emerging trends are coming, I'm observing that
mhm,
and helping, us put pieces together that gives us all, for lack of a better word, like exposure to that space or sector. And done right and with the right people and stuff, I mean, it can be, exceptionally beneficial, both to the world,
mhm,
but then also, um, to, the participants, the stakeholders who are involved in building, right? So it's in that pocket I'm always, most attentive and making moves in and playing with. So
mhm.
yeah,
Cool.
lots to come.
Yeah, lots happening.
Yeah,
Love it. I
yeah,
feel like all as entrepreneurs, we're always up to a million things, but also
yeah.
bringing it back to one thing
Well, they all move at different
yeah,
speeds, right?
totally.
And something that was maybe not moving that fast suddenly
Yeah,
like takes off, and
yeah,
you're like, oh wow, I didn't see that was actually gonna
yeah.
happen yet. And so it, takes some attention and whatever. So yeah, so there's usually a portfolio of stuff
Mm,
around me that, I'm working on. Anything from like helping a company that is ready to go
mhm,
meaning they've got, a bunch of pieces there and they need help executing,
Mhm.
to, a company that's totally distressed and trying out SOS and needs help to, you know, get turned around and resurrect their journey, right? So everything in between,
Mhm.
as well.
I feel like there's a lot of those out there right now, especially in the tech world,
Yeah,
which it's hard. It's hard to watch. Started our company like 7 years ago, and nobody is around. Like from when we started, everybody's
right.
basically gone, and like either they died before the pandemic or just slowly now. But it's freaking hard. But
It's tough. I mean, especially if you're looking for, product market fit, like you've got to really,
hmm
experiment and test and lock things in. Once you get going, a lot of things for me are data driven.
hmm
Does help find the seam, but you do marry that with instinct and intuition and inspiration by what's going on around you. But yeah, you got to be flexible and
hmm
versatile and adaptable and not too rigid and focused on your goal. What
hmm
is this problem? Um, what is the solution we bring? How is this solution different
hmm
than what's currently in the marketplace?
hmm
Why do you believe it's better? Why do we need this now? Like
hmm
that kind of stuff,
hmm
right? And that helps like propel you, right? And just keep doing it every day.
hmm
Keep helping people every day with that thing, and you grow. You
hmm
will you will grow, right? Don't worry about all the like big, financing announcements or the lifestyle. A lot of lifestyle companies in this world where people like,
hmm
you know, they want to have the image of living the life, um, and spend accordingly as opposed to focusing on the delivery of the solution,
hmm
um, which will actually give them that life
That's the thing.
as they do it,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's like a bit of a shortcut. So
Yeah.
don't worry about the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like shed, honestly, like fuck all that stuff. Like just get real,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, just just do what you gotta do and like live authentically and build. And yeah, I think that's just good policy for any business or early stage venture. Like
Yeah.
every day, who did we help today?
Mm-hmm.
And every day, you'll help one more person or two more people. And depending on your model, if it's, um, amenable to scale, that will continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the number of customers you have, the people you're working with, the people who know about you, right? So maybe tomorrow that's, 5 people you help, and maybe the day after that that's 10, and like just focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
Who did I help today? It also feels amazing to help people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just work from that place, and that that'll propel you, right? And if you're helping people, that definitely, and that service or product is
Mm-hmm.
actually reaching people, that comes back around. That
Yeah.
will get other people's attention,
Yeah.
right? It's when your fundamentals don't make sense or like your story doesn't have the answers in place. You know, like how does this business work? Oh, well, we don't really know yet. Well, that's when people scratch their heads a little more and
Mm-hmm.
move a little slower to support you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just philosophically, that's probably a good way to like focus on that. But yeah, like access to capital has become tighter. There are various shitstorms in the air. At present, I will revert back to what I said earlier, that my awareness of those could then also be sourced in me. So like where do those actually, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How are those in my awareness?
Yeah.
So I'm not just gonna say like those are out there and whatever,
Yeah.
but we both acknowledge that they exist, and
Mm-hmm.
they're impacting these communities. They've impacted the public markets also. Um, as an observer of all this and as a creator of all this, on like more of like a meta woo kind of a level, right? You call it up, you
Mm-hmm.
draw awareness to it, or you call it out. You draw awareness to it. You speak to it, um, and you get clear on what you'd like to see differently. And I think that's the way to approach dialogue around these things. And I am of the opinion that some of the policies we've seen lately at various levels, domestically, for sure, at minimum, have not been supportive of, entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial community of people. And I mean, it's tough because I think everything you look at, everything you look around you here, was someone's idea, that they created. And that's how we build the world. And we need to, support and encourage entrepreneurs and continue to experiment and innovate and all of this. It helps better our experience. And that's the world. That's the path. That's the way of life that I don't know, I have deep in my blood.
Yeah.
But also believe in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a creative guy. Let's build. So it's been a tough period for many in that way. And I agree. But today is a new day, and tomorrow will be a better day, and we're going to keep building. Whether the wind's at our face and the wind is at our back, and the winds will turn, and the wind will be at your back.
Yeah.
Sooner than later.
Yeah.
And while the wind was in your face, you keep building, and when the winds change, you'll be ready for it. That's what I share and advise people a lot. Also.
Yeah, so. Totally. I appreciate that. Yeah. There's no overnight success, which people often see, but they don't see everything else that goes on behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff. I feel, right?
Yeah.
I feel I'm cool. I mean, I think we've shared a lot of just the way I see the world and what I do and my philosophies and stuff. Like, if anyone wants to connect with me on my socials, I think my Instagram's probably my most active, but it's at Chad McMillan. But through any of my channels and whatever, you can check out my books and stuff, products on my site, and stay tuned to companies I'm involved in and working with, and all that good stuff, right? And I'm just going to continue flowing the way I am, and flowing and growing, and doing cool stuff. That's my jam.
Yeah.
Flowing
and growing. Well, this has really inspired me. I appreciate this conversation. I feel like we always talk about so many great things when we do meet up and hang out. So really appreciate you being here. And
it's awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been great to chat.
Thank you.
Chat with you soon.